Hello, my name is Tony. I love war movies, World War II being my personal theatre of preference. Bang on where eagles dare, Cross of Iron, The Dirty Dozen, The Big Red One, and I'm one happy warmongering little soul. The Vietnam War though, not so much. As that conflict unceremoniously ended in the 70s, Hollywood started to churn out product based on it. Time to exploit the misery in the name of entertainment and box office bonanzas, none of which was going to be all that celebratory of some great military victory, because Nam is hard to sell as that, considering it was a long, monumental, life-wasting fuck-up. But hey, good job everyone learned their lessons then. Otherwise, they might later repeat this catastrophic lunacy somewhere like Iraq, which would have been... oh. Considering that flag-waving and hoorah Kandahar fist-pumping and chest-thumping was not exactly in order, instead, the films focused on individualized sagas like Buffoon, dreary navel-gazing romantic sentimentalism like The Beer Hunter, and full-blown operatic existential nihilism a la Acropolis Now and Full Mental Jack-Off. I saw these flicks because they were there to see, but I was never as invested in them as, say, The Guns of Navarone or A Bridge Too Far. My favourite Vietnam War picture is Stallone's First Blood, and that wasn't even set in Vietnam or during the war. Rather, it's an aftermath movie, an action-adventure thriller pivoting on the meditation that once you've created monsters to do your dirty work, what happens when they come home for pancakes and cookies, rather than conveniently dying out of the way once the job's over. I like that more proximate, edgier, intimate, home-to-roost conceptualization of it. And the savagery and violence naturally goes without saying. Go Tell the Spartans had a different perspective, in that it's set during the infancy of the Vietnam War in 1964, the point when a commitment to abject sustained failure on the part of the US was gestating along nicely. The military blunders kicked in early and you can glimpse their fledgling formation in the narrative. Major Barker, played by a then 65-year-old Burt Lancaster, is dumped with a tin pot command supervising 3 villages in South Vietnam. It's supposed to be an advisory force advising on what? I have no fucking idea. How to get your ass handed to you? Whatever, he's a veteran of World War II and Korea and far from enthusiastic about his current role. He gets orders from his superior General Harnett's Dolph Sweet to occupy Mukwa, a currently deserted shithole of no fixed importance. It's also the site of an infamous massacre of French troops during the First Indochina War. But as they were French, one might reasonably assume they were already surrendering or retreating or looking to collaborate with someone anyway, so let's not worry too much. Barker takes delivery of some new replacements: Lieutenant Hamilton, Joe Unger, Sergeant Olyanovsky, Jonathan Goldsmith, Corporal Lincoln, Dennis Howard, and Corporal Corsi, Craig Wasson. With limited personnel and resources at his disposal, he sends the 4 to occupy the village, along with a French-Vietnamese interpreter and interrogator nicknamed Cowboy Evan C. Kim, a squad of mercenaries, and about 20 ropey civilian troops. The personality mix of the 4 newbies doesn't exactly inspire confidence. Hamilton is an uptight, all-out-for-duty and glory guy, Olyanovsky an alcoholic burnout who formerly served under Barker in Korea, Lincoln an opium-smoking deadbeat who's allocated the role of team medic. No cause for concern there at all. And Corsi, a draftee demolitions guy, who has inexplicably extended his tour in Vietnam by 6 months. Because he wanted to see what a real war looks like, he later explains. Barker will call him a tourist. I don't think he'll be giving this vacation a positive TripAdvisor review anytime soon. After blowing up a roadblock and Cowboy decapitating a lone VC soldier who refuses to give up information, the ramshackle force reach Mukwa. Under Olyanovsky's direction, they make a pretty good job of cleaning up the village and establishing a rudimentary command post. On the outskirts is a cemetery, the resting place of the French troops massacred back in the early 1950s. Above the gate there is the legend,
"Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie."
It refers to the Battle of Thermopylae in 450 BC that saw, as popular myth has it, a force of 300 Spartans taking on the mass forces of the Persian invaders of Greece, against whom they were vastly outnumbered. They lost the battle and got obliterated. There was a film about it.
This is Sparta!
Yeah, that one. Out on patrol, Corsi encounters a group of locals, including women and children. Cowboy insists they are communist Viet Cong, but Corsi decides to ignore this specialist advice from an experienced native, because why wouldn't you, and welcomes them into the command post. He's into winning hearts and minds, the dick. Among their number is a teenage Vietnamese girl, Butterfly Denise Kumagai, who appears to be attracted to Corsi. Yes, bright, intelligent, in touch with reality, none of those things. He's such a fucking catch. No wonder she's got the hots for him. The operation deteriorates into a siege situation with a 1,000-strong battalion of Viet Cong assembling to take back the village. Hamilton gets himself killed trying to retrieve a fallen comrade from the battlefield who's already dead, so like dumb and pointless exercise. Olyanovsky, who tried to stop Hamilton but failed, is at the end of his rope and blows his brains out the next day. Barker has his second-in-command promotion chasing Captain Olivetti, Mark Singer, flown out to the site to take charge. Under his command and supported by US gunships, they manage to prevent the base being overrun. Eventually, Barker receives word that military command no longer feels Mukwa to be of strategic importance and orders evacuation. This was Barker's assessment at the start, which was dismissed. The retreat by chopper is only for the regular troops. The South Vietnamese and civilian militia are to be left behind. Cowboy and the mercs have gunned down the locals Corsi so cleverly brought into the fold, as they have been caught trying to leave with stolen weapons and ammunition. He was right about them working with the enemy. Butterfly, the teenage girl, cannot be found. Having flown out on the evacuation transport, Barker orders Corsi to leave, but he refuses. Barker remains behind with him to try and evacuate the remaining personnel. Under cover of friendly artillery fire, they head off at night. However, Butterfly, a communist spy, has informed the Viet Cong army of their intention, and they are ambushed. In the ensuing firefight, Barker is shot and killed. Corsi is wounded and concealed in the undergrowth by an elderly militiaman. When he regains something approximating consciousness the next day, he finds the bodies of Barker and the others stripped of their clothing and left where they lie. The old man who saved him is likewise dead. On stumbling back to the French graveyard, a one-eyed VC scout raises his rifle to fire at him. He is too exhausted and wounded to take the shot and cannot support the gun. Corsi stumbles on his way, announcing, "I'm going home, if you'll let me." Go Tell the Spartans is based on the 1967 novel Incident at Mukwa by Daniel Ford. Ford was a war correspondent in Vietnam in 1964, and his book was drawn from actual events. The screenplay was by Wendell Mays, who had to his credit Anatomy of a Murder, Von Ryan's Express, The Poseidon Adventure, and Death Wish. Ted Post, Clint Eastwood's old amigo and director of Hang 'em High and the second best Dirty Harry movie, Magnum Force, directs here. Score is by Dick Halligan, something of a nondescript TV hack, and his bargain basement military themes are passable fare at best. Cinematographer Harry Stradlin Jr. goes for that high bright sun aesthetic for the daylight scenes, except when it's raining, and a sharp focused clarity in the nighttime skirmishes. The overall sound and look are fair to good. Burt Lancaster gives one of his best performances in my opinion as a career soldier who knows his business, tells it like it is, but is little more than a minor cog in a monumental military machine that thinks it knows better. He's a decent man, a world-weary realist, exhausted from having to resort to machinations and threats to get even basic requests agreed to by the brass. Things that shouldn't even be an issue or questioned or require lengthy explanation and justification. Everyone performs well, but the triteness of some of the dialogue lets them down a bit. Yeah, I know, it's easy to always blame the scriptwriter. So, with that in mind, I will. It's the scriptwriter's fault. Well, come on, no one else told them what to say. Post-direction is of slightly erratic quality. Sometimes it feels sure-footed, stable and confident. Then others it's a bit scrappy and uneven. Working with a low budget doesn't always bring out the best in some people in certain circumstances, and the money ran out before the film was completed. Lancaster strikes as the sort of guy when he commits to something he likes to see it through. He personally stumped up the required $150,000 shortfall needed to get it done. Then there's the frustration factor generated by certain characters that some might find irksome, specifically General Harnitz and Hamilton and Corsi. Three people who just won't listen. Harnitz completely ignores anything his subordinate has to say, until the point where Barker sends him a telegram threatening to come see him and shoot him in the balls unless he sees sense over the evacuation. Hamilton, despite his inexperience, is convinced his way is the right way, even when Olyanovsky and Cowboy provide advice and hard evidence to the contrary. Then Corsi, a bleeding heart liberal, won't cede to anyone whose opinions and beliefs differ from his. The spiraling sequences of disastrous events with deadly consequences are largely largely down to the actions of these three egocentric dogmatists. Maybe that is the point the film is making. An unwinnable war in which governments and individuals refuse to accept what stares them in the face is unlikely to end well. This theme is linked to and echoes the plight of the massacred French troops, and then further back to that of the Spartans in 450 BC. It was futile, they all died, they should have seen it coming, they should have known. Well, maybe they did, and it simply changed nothing. Perhaps, learning from history, it should have. But then, when does that ever happen, eh? Yes, Go Tell the Spartans is flawed. What it does have going for it is a formidable honesty in exposing the fundamental tactical idiocy entrenched from the outset and the failure to understand the people taking part or the theatre and environment in which the Vietnam War was taking place. Lancaster's character sees the oncoming waste of human life like a freight train rushing towards him. He perceives how this will go, but there's nothing he can do about it because big government and the military have their own agenda. Is their big ball of destruction and they're going to play with it by their own rules regardless. Okay, perhaps it overplays the irrelevance of the American presence in Vietnam, insisting it was a dead end from the very start. But then again, perhaps it's bang on the money. The film is more my sort of thing in the broader scheme of Vietnam War movies of the 70s and beyond. It would be untruthful of me to tell you Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket didn't float my boat, because they did, and I found lots to enjoy and wonder at in both. But then I found much to enjoy and wonder at in slightly different ways and for slightly different reasons in Chuck Norris's Missing in Action 1 and 2, a brace of the Chuckster's finest hours. Or minutes. Ultimately, I prefer Go Tell the Spartans for its brutalist and stripped-back approach. It's simpler and uncluttered, a far less overwrought and less bloviated treatment of the subject matter, and it gave Burt Lancaster one of his last great leading roles. Many thanks for your time and attention. I appreciate it. Please consider hitting like, don't like, leaving a comment, subscribing, checking out my Patreon page, or even be the first ever to hit that very important super thanks button below. Think of the kudos, not the cost. That said, I'm going to be back soon with something of a criminal nature that will take you straight back to another time. Or it might be something else entirely, as I fear myself slipping into a whimsical, unpredictable frame of mind. Later, pilgrims! Vietnam is now a popular tourist destination. Iraq, it could be your turn next. Just fill those bomb craters with chlorinated water and bang out the sun loungers. Sunseekers, go all inclusive and get a free Lego IED kit for the kids. Then play hunt the missing fingers in the giant sandpit. Family friendly fun for all. Just kidding, you'll never see those fingers again.